It's been around 9 years since the last Punch-Out game, and here we are with the next one. Well, in everything but name at least, Knockout League is the newest game from Grab Games, a primarily VR developer, with their only other title being John Wick VR Chronicles. Originally released as an early access game on Steam last year, Knockout League came out of early access on February 13th, as well as releasing on PSVR. I feel this game will be a polarizing title. There are those VR fans that want their games to be as realistic as possible, with full freedom of movement. Knockout League will not be that. If you've ever played Punch Out, you will understand what Knockout League is. It is a very nice homage to the classic Nintendo series, with unique and interesting characters you fight against, pattern recognition based gameplay, and a charming feeling that feels pulled straight out of a Nintendo game. Now, let's see if it manages to stand up on its own, or if it gets its lights knocked out. First up, I have gameplay and controls. With the main fights, the core of the gameplay is recognizing the patterns of your opponent's attacks and avoiding them to open up opportunities to land damage on them. Your opponent throws a punch from the left, dodge down, come up with a punch to the teeth, and look for the signs of their next attack. While dodging is a big focus, blocking is also an option, but it seems highly discouraged here, since the more you block, the more of your health bar becomes gray, which is called block fatigue. Block fatigue can build up quickly if you rely too heavily on blocking during a short amount of time, and if you take damage before the fatigue goes away, which gradually happens the more you punch your opponent, you will lose all the health that was grayed out. Because of this, it's a good idea to block as little as possible, only when necessary. Each opponent has their special movesets and ways they fight, so learning how they fight is the way to victory. The opponents always have telegraphs for their attacks well before they execute them. This gives the gameplay its arcadey feel. Now, the headset tracking in this game is spot on. There was never a moment where I felt my dodging movements weren't being registered. The same cannot be said for the move controllers, though for the most part the move controls worked well. There were quite a few moments when I would come up with a punch right after a very lengthy dodging section, and my punch would not register. I tried to punch again, it wouldn't register, and then my opponent would come back up, and I just wasted that opportunity to put a lot of damage on him and possibly gain some more health, which is really frustrating at times. Next up, I have visuals and performance. Knockout League features some of the best character models I have seen in VR. Each one is polished and given their own unique style that really meshes well with the cartoony visual style. And the physics, for the most part, on these characters feel natural, with some issues such as this pirate opponent. He has this big flowy beard, but halfway down his beard it just becomes completely static, with the top half flowing around, the bottom half is just static and weird at an angle. And this cartoony visual style that the game has, I believe, is a real big help in making the game perform as smoothly as it does. While playing, I haven't run into any moments where I felt the performance dip considerably at all. While I mentioned how polished the character models are, this also applies for the environments you fight in or train in, and the menus. The menus and all the environments have this really charming feel. The whole game oozes this polished cartoony charm that draws inspiration from Punch-Out, but with its own unique style. Content. In early access, Knockout League only featured 4 fighter opponents. Here in the full release, we have a nice 9 to battle through. Each opponent gets progressively more difficult as you go on. However, personally, I didn't run into any real challenges until around the 4th opponent. Even as the difficulty progresses, you would be hard pressed to take more than 4 to 5 hours getting through them all. But that's where training mode comes in. With 3 different modes, Speed Bag, Focus Mitts, and Reflex Alley, you can possibly spend hours just training yourself, because this game really is a nice little workout. It's not the most intense thing in the world, but if you're looking for something more on the light side, this game is something that can definitely hit that spot. And Reflex Alley is definitely something I could see myself coming back to just for a light workout at times. Now for the big question. Is Knockout League worth the $30 being asked for it? This is a very polished game that will appeal to a very specific set of people. Those who love the original Punch-Out. Those who just want a VR game that will give them a little bit of a exercise while they have fun. But for those of you looking for a more realistic boxing experience on VR, this is not going to be for you. This is for the more casual kind of puzzle, because this is kind of a puzzle game. You have to realize what patterns are coming next and react to those patterns. So for those who love that sort of gameplay, this game will be for you. But if not, you might want to wait on a sale if you are still interested in it. For me personally, this game was definitely worth it. I love the charm. I love everything about this game. So for me, this game was definitely worth the purchase.